Hey, I have an announcement. We are fast approaching episode 300 of the Career Changemaker podcast. And to mark this milestone, we are going to be hosting a live podcast recording in London. And I am inviting you to come and join us. You're going to see the behind the scenes of me interviewing amazing guests. And we're going to be opening up the floor for Q&A and some spot coaching and then some networking. So I would love to get to meet you in person, have you meet other people inside of this amazing career change maker community and just celebrate with you. Whether you've listened to one episode or the 300 episodes or anywhere in between, I am so grateful that you are part of this community and I'd love to celebrate with you live. So it's taking place at the end of November. Details can be found in the show notes. So click the link. Get your ticket. There are limited spots, literally only 30 spots available. And I would love to see you take up one of those seats. So go and grab your ticket. Welcome to the Career Changemaker podcast, where we focus on owning your career journey and making impact through the work that you do. Whether you're looking to pivot, transition into leadership, or reimagine your career completely, this podcast is for you. We'll unpack career development strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset shifts needed to thrive in your career. Being a career changemaker means taking control and shaping your professional path with intention. I'm your host, lawyer turned career and leadership development specialist, Janine Esbrand. So if you're ready for candid conversations that are going to help you grow, keep listening. Hello, and welcome to the show. I am super excited for you to be here today. We have a really special, different kind of show today. I am joined by the amazing Patricia, who is a fellow career coach, and we're going to do a bit of a behind the scenes coffee chat style conversation where she's going to share a bit about her career journey and the transition she's been through. And I'm also going to share a bit about mine. And we're just going to talk about what it looks like to transition from a corporate career into running your own business, the highs and lows that go with that. And our hope is that anyone who's in the midst of a transition or about to embark on a transition can gain some insight into what to expect on a practical level, but also on an emotional level. So this is an opportunity to have kind of like one of those fly on the wall situations where you can listen into our conversation. So I'm excited for you to hear it. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Janine, I think this is such a fun conversation to be having, and I'd love to kick it off with just learning about your story of leaving law.
Yes, I am looking forward to sharing today, Patricia. So I started off my career as a corporate lawyer. I took a while to get to the point of qualifying, and just before officially qualifying as a lawyer here in the UK, I had the opportunity to go on a mission trip. So I went with a group of Christian lawyers to East Africa, and we spent a few weeks in Kenya and Rwanda, and we were really helping support different access to justice initiatives. So we were going into prisons and educating prisoners on their rights. We were going into villages and educating parents on child protection rights. And it was just such a transformational experience. We went for 2 weeks, but it felt like 2 months because of the amount of things that we did. And I came back and I really felt like there was a shift for me. And whilst I was committed to becoming a lawyer and growing as a lawyer, I was feeling like I wanted to do something that could support people on a personal level because, a couple of weeks prior, I was in a dusty prison in Kenya fighting for the rights of the people. And then now I was sitting at my desk working on a transaction and there was this cognitive dissonance. I was like, oh, what should I be doing? And so I kind of started searching for what I could possibly do alongside my legal career. And I just came across this ad about coaching, which I'd never really heard of before. And it said to come to like a 2-day intro to coaching. So I went along to this event and my mind was blown. I was like, what? There's this whole entire industry where you just get to help people and you get to support them with their careers or like their lives or whatever. And at that point, I was sold and went down a rabbit hole, did my first certification alongside my legal career, did the next one, started coaching people, mainly lawyers to start off with, and then other professionals. And then over the years, I added on speaking on stages and doing some corporate work and training and facilitation. And yeah, so now I'm in a space where I'm full time doing this. I was juggling both for about 4 or 5 years where I had a portfolio career going on. But in COVID, it all got a little bit much to juggle all the things and homeschool two children. So I went full time in the business. And so that's what we're doing now.
Oh my gosh, how fun is that? Well, I love hearing your story and how things kind of evolved over time. What made you decide, okay, I need to actually make the shift because leaving a career in law is no small thing, right? There's so much time and
Mm.
effort. It's like, becoming a medical doctor and then saying, oh, well, all those, residency and all the things, right? How did you make peace with that?
Yeah, I think for me, because I was doing both for a while and I was quite happy juggling the two, but I think there was one particular day when it was lockdown where I was working as in-house counsel for a startup and they were asking me to draft this contract. So I was on the phone to the MD and he was like, can we turn this around by tomorrow? We need it. I'm like, absolutely. Then I jump off that call and I jump on a coaching call with a client. And as I'm jumping on the coaching call with a client, my two kids are like, Mummy, I need a snack. I need to get on Zoom. Can you help me? And I was just like, oh, okay. There's just a lot going on. I can't do all the things. I'm wearing too many hats now. And so at that point, I felt like I could no longer do both. I needed to pick. So the question was, do I go back to being a lawyer full time or do I go all in on the business? And so I asked myself the question, like, which do you want to do? And I really enjoyed being a lawyer, but I love coaching. Like, I just love it. I'm passionate about it. I love the results that my clients get. And so for me, it was a let's go all in on the business and see what happens. And so it wasn't so much I hate the law, I want to leave like that. It was more, this is something I enjoy more than what I'm currently doing.
Mm, I love that. I think back on my moment of like, oh, I've got to make a change. And it was so different. And I think it's helpful to hear stories of how people made that decision, right? Because you never know when you're at the fork in the road. You really
Mm,
don't. And so many people kind of ruminate for so long at that fork, you know? And so to kind of bring a little bit of, I guess, a different flavor, right? Another side of how this could
yeah.
look. I know for me, it is also related to the pandemic, but in a very, very different way. So I actually come from an academic background. I was a counselor. I got my master's in counseling back in, oh gosh, I'm aging myself, what, 2010, 2012, something I can't even remember right now. I was like 13, I think. And so I get my counseling degree. I become a career counselor, and I remember at that time it was no, it must have been 2008, 2010, because it was smack in the middle. Architects were losing their entire careers.
Oh, wow.
CEOs were coming into my career center, my office, and I'm this, new career counselor. And the CEO was like crying on,
Oh,
like in
wow.
their seat, like melting onto the floor because they just lost everything. And how do I reinvent myself so I don't have to go to work at McDonald's? I kid you not, that was a real situation. And I just remember it being like, how is that possible? Like the world doesn't work this way, So that's where I started. Then I did a lot of retention work. Even as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, it's such a rich history to hear your law background. And I have none of that law background, right? But then on my end, it's a lot of the human behavior stuff, retention
Mm,
for underrepresented students. So students who were like, I'm never going to be an engineer. I did a lot of the coaching, counseling, and advising for those students who started at arithmetic, 3 plus 7, 5 times, because they're so behind in math. And I saw them go all the way through becoming engineers, finishing their
wow.
bachelor's degree. Like that taught me so much about the human spirit. That taught me so much about grit. That taught me so much about when you want something, if you can get clear on why you're doing it and really clearly see the steps from here to the end, you can do it. It's maybe going to involve more work than you planned, but every worthy goal has a cost. That's why it's worthy, right? So
Right.
that was that second layer of experience. So we have the I guess the fall of the economy in the earlier 2000s. Then we've got that retention work. And then I was interesting that you and I are always also already have brought up faith, but close to 2014-ish, I felt from the Lord like, hey, leave this position. And I ended up leaving that position. I didn't have anything else, but by the grace of God, one of my mentors from a prior role had called me and he was offering me a position that paid way more and worked less. And so, of course, along the same lines of balance that you mentioned, I'm like, of course I'll take a job that. And so we start that route. And again, grace God and the skills that He's given me the ability to develop. Um, through all of those skill sets, I noticed my education is related to career counseling, related to that whole journey and personal development and counseling. My experience was, I came from a crazy childhood and I got to a point where I was like, if I cannot figure out how to fend for myself and advocate for myself in my career, I will never move up and I will never get out of survival, paycheck to paycheck,
Mm.
right? So there's the personal side on career. And then there was a talent in career that I realized I'm actually really good at, like branding and strategy and like, you know what I mean? Like helping, because you're a career coach too, like helping the employer feel like I have just got to hire her.
Mm.
Right? Like that whole skill set. And that's when I realized, oh, this is how people get career clarity. You see the experience you like and you have, you see everything in your personal wheelhouse, your natural experiences and talents and skills. And so I saw all of that and I'm like, oh, this is where I need to go. And so I had been doing some of that work for an institution and it was fun, it was amazing. I loved it. Then the pandemic hit. Okay.
Mm.
All that long story to now tell you the trigger. The trigger for my decision making process was that the pandemic had hit. Everybody was in the middle of change. So we're all willing to change anything at that point because our whole life has been upended, right? Then a number of things kept happening everywhere around the world, but also in our institution that were really difficult for me to say. I just don't think I love you guys, but I don't think our values are the same right now. And so we made
Mm.
the really difficult decision, really difficult, because mind you, I had just gotten tenured. I was a tenured faculty member, like Mecca of Mecca in academics, like, and so I thought, I've
Wow.
got the pay, I've got the security, I've got the thought leadership, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're a tenured faculty. I have the amazing faculty, the students. I loved my job. I mean, it was just perfect. And for the Lord to be like, it's your time to go.
How did you reconcile that in terms of doors have been opened for you to get to that point? And when you set the goal and you're like, right, I'm aiming for the top here, and you get to the top, and then it's like, yeah, yeah, no, that's not what I want you to do anymore. Like, what was your reaction? Because I know sometimes I'll be like, okay, God, what's going on here? Like, we just have some really candid conversations. And I'm like, I just don't understand. Why would you? And obviously, in hindsight, you see it and oh, okay, I get it. I understand. But at the time, I'm like, I don't understand why you're asking me to do this.
That is one of the best questions ever because literally it's if you're listening in year of the faith, it is a stretching moment where you're like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. In order for me, and I'm just going to say what was in my mind, no filter, in order for me to have faith in you, your path for me has to make sense to me. And it doesn't right now. And that's when I realized, okay, as I'm trying to make sense of the situation, at the same time, I'm realizing my faith is incredibly shallow. Because if
Mm.
my faith has to make sense to me, it's not really faith. And so that's why I was like, okay, well, I know where my values are. And I know you cognitive dissonance. You mentioned that. It was the same thing where I was like, and it's the interesting thing you mentioned the mountain too. Like I thought I climbed this mountain when at the end of the day, what I found at the top of that mountain is that we're not climbing a mountain in this life. We start climbing a mountain. Almost everyone who gets to the top of the mountain is like, I climbed the wrong mountain, right? But now I think after that, very much in hindsight, because it was tears, and we'll get into that. I would like to hear yours too, but my tears were loud. And like, I remember there came a point where I was like, I have to reconcile this. I have to reconcile that I have given up. And I thought I had given up and I forgot all my training. You didn't give it up. And if you're about
Mm.
considering right now a career change, you're not giving it up. You have a toolkit with a bunch of tools in there that are going to work for a lot of different spaces. But at the time, I was like, I've given all of this up. And eventually I came around to, I haven't. I have enjoyed my walk up this mountain, and I'm going to enjoy my walk up another mountain.
Yes. And I think it's recognizing that everything's for a season and you're in the place that you're in for the time that you're in it for a reason. It might be for you personally in terms of your growth and your development. It might be for the impact that you're going to make on other people. But ultimately, nothing is wasted. I say this to people all the time because, there can be this feeling of like, but I've invested all this time here and now I'm going to go do something else. Nothing is wasted when you're making those decisions or you're reconciling, it can be messy. And you mentioned tears. I'm like, I remember, so before I went full time in my business, I was on the fence of like, I think I can do it. Like, I think I've proven that this thing can work, but really, am I sure? And I was about to hand in my notice from my lawyer job. And there was this one particular morning, I was getting the kids ready and my phone rang. And sometimes when your phone rings and you see the name and it's a friend that kind of talks long, like someone who's not going to be a quick conversation.
Oh, yes, we all know that person.
Yeah. I was like, I hadn't spoken to her for a long time. So I was like, this is definitely going to be too long of a combo. So at first I wasn't going to answer. But then the Holy Spirit was like, answer the call. So I answered the call and she was like, listen, I know it's busy. You're probably with the kids. Um, I just want to say this really quickly. I don't know why I've been told to say this, but I was praying this morning and God said I should call you. And here's what he said I should say. It was something along the lines of, I see you. I see the hard work you've been putting in. I see how committed you are. You're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. And Patricia, when I tell you, like, I literally burst into tears. She was like, are you okay? I was like, do you know what? I can't even explain to you what this means right now. Like, we got to talk later. But like, all I want to say to you is thank you for being obedient because the message that came through you was exactly what I needed. Like, for me, it was the God wink that was like, yeah, go ahead. Like, even though I don't know where this is going to go, it was that confirmation that I needed at that time. And so for me, the tears were very much like, it just blows my mind that, the God of the universe cares enough about my life and what I'm doing to orchestrate this conversation, and so at that point I was like, okay, like I can go ahead. I can take this step, which feels really huge and scary. And my whole identity is wrapped up in being a lawyer because it took so long to get here. And now I'm stepping away from that and just saying I'm focusing on being a business owner. It was a lot. And I
Mm.
mean, there was times, maybe probably like a year in. I think at first I was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm excited. And maybe like a year in, I went through this season where I was like, who am I? I don't even know what I call myself. And I remember I was going to my office at the time. I had hired like a small office that I would just work out of. And I would just cry. Like I'd sit at my desk and just cry. And I was like, what's going on? I don't know why I'm crying. I just have a little cry in the morning. And it got so regular over a course of like a few weeks that my friend called me one day and was like, hey, what's going on? I was like, it's okay. I just had my Monday morning cry. I'm fine. And she was like, what? Your Monday morning cry? What's this about? I'm like, oh yeah, it's actually been most Monday mornings for the last few weeks that I've
Mm.
just burst into tears. And I realized it was because I felt like I didn't know quite where I fit now. Like, I'm a business owner,
Mm.
I'm also a coach, I'm a podcaster, like, what is even my title? Who am I? And so there was this whole experience of recalibrating my identity and realizing that previously my identity was so wrapped up in what I did that now I'm not lawyering. I'm like, who am I? But actually, I am Janine. Like I am who I am. What
Hmm.
I do, whether it's running a business, whether it's being a lawyer, whether it's staying at home with my kids, like whatever it is that I do is what I do. It isn't who I am. And it was that whole period where God had to kind of show me that it's all a bit too tangled. You need to unravel this so you can figure out identity versus role.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. And if you're listening, you're here with your coffee and you're like, girl, I know too. Because it's so true, right? Especially, and I'm sure you work with these clients too, but I work with clients all the time who are really successful on the outside, but then on the inside, they're like, something's just not jiving. And I can't put my finger on it. And the more successful I am, the more exhausted I am because we lose that, right? Same thing. And I think that's part of why we started this conversation on like leaving law and tenure, because both of those are spaces that are very like, I'm a, tenured faculty. I'm a lawyer. Like obviously, right? I'm a medical doctor. But no matter what your career is, because we spend so much time at work, it's so easy to have our identity wrapped up in our work. And then what happens, right? It's if I'm successful at work, then I'm successful as a person. If I'm not successful at work, I'm not successful as a person. That piece is I don't know, it's really hard to untangle. I know when I left my campus, I remember people would always ask me like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm counseling faculty, and I love working with my students." And I had the spiel down, and I had the structure of an entire organization, and all the accolades they had, and all the prestige, and oh, so and so graduated from this school, and so that's why it's so great, right? Now I had nothing. And I have questions for you, by the way. I'm already like thinking questions to ask you because it's just so interesting to go from so much structure, authority that has been sort of granted to you in a way because of the work that you've done, to go from that to I have a clear sheet of paper. This sheet of paper is going to define who I am, right? Because I went into it this way, and it took me a while to say exactly what you just said, to be like, I am not a counseling faculty. I am not a career coach. I am Patricia Ortega. Like, that's who I am. And the weird thing is that when I lost, like in my environment, and I don't know if this is true for you, but in my environment, there's things you had to do to be professional. And I'm a really joyful, like, hey, how's it going? Right. And people
Yes.
always mistake me for being younger than I am or for being less
Mm-hmm.
experienced than I am. And what I
Mm-hmm.
learned there is, oh, be like so and then you'll, be successful. And so again, lost identity. I get into coaching and I'm still unraveling this. For the first year, I was like, good morning, like very
Hello.
trying to be so corporate. And what I realized is what people want is this personality. They want a place where they can say, I want you to have the expertise, but also to have the human side of you. I want you to know exactly what you're doing and how you're going to guide me, but also to know that I can sit here in my most vulnerable moments where I'm just sick of this job search and I just need you to walk me off the ledge. You know what I mean? Like, so, so here's my
Yeah.
question to you. Like, I know that you didn't lose that identity as a lawyer or lose that skill set along with it. So like how do you see now your background in law as
Mm.
like a perfect foundation for the work you're doing now? Like how are you using those skills in this business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I draft my own contracts, so that's cool. So when I don't have to get a lawyer to do that. I just think at the end of the day, whatever training you've had, whether it's your degree or further professional qualifications, the likelihood is you had that training pretty young, right? When you're like a young adult, maybe 18, 19, 20, whatever. Your brain is shaped, still forming up until the age of 25, right? So there's certain things that you learn in terms of the way that you approach things that will just always be. So, like when you hear people talking about what they do now, and they're like, I trained as an engineer, or I trained as a teacher, or, I trained as a lawyer. There's the there's parts of my brain that just work like a lawyer. Like I will ask questions, I will be critical of things, I will be able to see the cracks in things, read between the lines. And as a coach, that's really helpful. So
Mm,
when the client is saying stuff to me on the surface, I'm like, I think there's more there. And so, in addition to coaching questions, I think the way that I approach questions to try and really get a full picture of what's going on is informed by my foundation as a lawyer. So
mm,
I think the way I look at it is that I don't practice law anymore, but I'm still a lawyer. Like I'm still a qualified lawyer, and I will always be. And that period of my life and my exposure allows me to understand how other lawyers and professionals think. Like I'm able to resonate with some of the challenges that my clients have because I've been there. I know what it's like. I've been in the environment. So I think being able to leverage the exposure that I've gained in the past life as a lawyer and bring that into my work in terms of, anecdotes, stories that I can draw on for clients, and then just the way that I look at things it's all there. It's all in the pot, which is why, nothing is wasted. You just get to use it all. And like you said earlier, your toolkit, it's like there's more things in the toolkit now, and you get to draw on it when you need to draw on it. And I think if we view our careers like that, we're less likely to feel like, oh no, I can't pivot or I shouldn't because I've invested all this time. It's like, yes, you have. And no one's taking that away from you. You take all of that knowledge and insight that you gain there and you bring it on to the next, whatever that is, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what that's reminding me of right now is the other part of our conversation that we had before hitting record is normalizing the change and the fact that, we talked about this entrepreneurial spirit, which
Mm,
I think is not something that is actively taught in school, nor is it actively trained in work. And coming into this business, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Like, I've learned so much about entrepreneurship and that way of thinking, like you said, thinking like a lawyer, thinking like a
mm,
counselor, thinking like an entrepreneur. And in doing that, I think I've found so many gaps that employees, that candidates, that professionals need to know in order to operate as Elizabeth Allen, who's a dear colleague, she always says an economy of one, the
mm.
CEO of your own business, right? Like,
Yes.
and this is a skill, this entrepreneurial skill set, everything from being able to advocate for yourself, brand yourself, strategize your own message, right? Strategize
Mhm.
who you're going to target and why and how to approach them. From that all the way to thinking like an entrepreneur in terms of I can't wait until my manager tells me, hey, learn this software. I need to be like, how is AI affecting human resources in the next 15 years? And how do I ride the wave instead of get taken under it? And to me,
Mhm.
it's that mindset that we need to not only normalize, but get on that train ASAP. So, with that in
Yes.
mind, I know you have thoughts on this too.
Yes, 100%. So my one of my signature talks is called Being the CEO of Your Career. And so since becoming an entrepreneur and realizing that there is so much that I've learned that could have applied to my life as a lawyer when I was in corporate, if I had known, I kind of draw the parallel between, you running a business and you being a professional, and your product as a professional is the service that you provide to your company, and your payment, your salary is that payment for that product. So really thinking about, how are you selling yourself, how are you marketing yourself, how are you working on your operations, like upgrading your skills, how are you managing your finances. So I think that being in the position where I'm running a business and realizing that when you run a business you wear so many hats and you're constantly switching hats. In your career you should be wearing more than one hat. Most people are just focused on the one hat. They're focused on doing the work, doing it well, and progressing. But the reality is you have to do the work, but you also have to manage your career in parallel. And so I think people need to recognize that it isn't for your manager to tell you you should do a review or tell you to start thinking about your personal or professional development plan. That's on you. It's your career. So you need to be driving it. And so I think there's so much that I've learned, particularly around things like business development, that I had no idea what I was doing when I was when I was a junior lawyer. But now as a business owner, I understand why you need to do certain things. So it's kind of like paying attention to the bigger picture, like you said, and not just being in the weeds.
Mhm.
But one of the biggest things that I think I have realized and then continue to realize is in entrepreneurship, because you are building the structure and you are building everything and you're doing it within an active marketplace, A plus B doesn't equal C all of the time. You can do something and it works. And then you can come back again and say, okay, that's fantastic. Let's do it again. And the second time it flops and you're like, wait, what? Last time this was a great strategy. And now not so much. And so you have to learn not to be tied to the outcomes as much, right? Because if you
Mm,
get caught up in this outcome that I didn't want is a reflection on my ability to run this business or ability to do this, you'll get taken out. So you have to be able to separate and realize that just because things don't go your way, that doesn't mean it's a reflection on your ability. It just means that you need to like reiterate, you need to pivot or figure out what you're going to do next. And I think that mindset of it's okay to one, make mistakes or fail in air quotes, because there's learning there that you can then take to the next whatever it is you're going to do next in the business or in the work that you do.
100%. To go behind the scenes on that, yes or no, when you meet clients or potential clients, there's this hope, right? They know, people know, we often have this, at least for me, we often have this conversation, but clients go in with it's still a little bit of hope that if I have a coach, it's going to work like a formula. If I have a coach, we're going to have experience no issues. And I'm like, no, 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 that's why you have a coach, because the issues are almost inevitable. And we need the mindset shift. We need to interrupt the cycle that can be a destructive cycle if it doesn't have the coaching in between to separate the experience from the thought and the feeling that forms from it.
Yes,
Um,
100%. And I think especially when people are transitioning, because there is the, you know, the bit where you do at the beginning where you're working on their mindset and like helping them to understand what they want, their vision and all of that. Then you get into like the execution. And sometimes you're in the messy middle where as you're executing, it's not happening as quickly as you want, or it doesn't look like things are working. And having the coaching at that moment is really important. Like I did a session with a client not long ago and we did like a VIP day together. She had her strategy and I checked in with her. And then she was just like, yeah, you know, I've had this interview, but I'm feeling really out of sorts and I just don't know what's happening. I'm not used to this feeling and I don't think it's working. And she came from a career where she was in the same company for 20 years. So I'm like, listen, this is totally normal for
you're
you to
in the
feel
right
like
place.
you're in the right place. You're absolutely in the right place. It's not comfortable. I get it. I know, but you're in the right place. And I think the benefit of working with a coach, right, is because we've both worked with lots of different clients, different backgrounds, and we've seen the process go and the cycle and what it is, we can be that voice of reason for them and say, look, this is normal. This is what to expect. But for the individual going through it, they're like, okay, I haven't had an interview
When
for
do
20
I give
years.
up? I don't know at what point to give up or at what point to pivot.
Exactly. And like, do I keep going? Is this okay? And so I think it's being able to give them insight and examples, but just know that everybody's journey is different. And so the time frame could be different, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, so I know that you and I could go on for this could be like a Joe Rogan episode that's like 3 hours long, but
Same.
because I know that you're probably here listening and your cup of coffee's almost gone, you're almost at your location, right? Let's start to land the plane. I would love to land it with some really practical pieces that you've learned from this process of sort of a bit of reinvention, a bit of change. What are the practical things that have really helped you specifically to get
Mm,
into this like action first, emotion later type of mentality, the entrepreneurial mentality, really?
yeah. I think one of the biggest things that's helped me, and I share it with people all the time, is when you are figuring out what the next step is and you're trying to vision, right? You're trying to vision cast and say, okay, what do I even want the next step to look like? Separating out the what and the how is so, so helpful. Because often what happens is when people start thinking, oh, I'd love to do that, then their brain goes to, okay, but how would I make that happen? And because they don't have a point of reference or evidence that that can happen, they discount it. And it's like, oh, I can't even see how that would happen. So then I don't want it. And the reality is you do want it, but you just don't know how to make it happen. So I think for me, when I was going into building my business, it's like, I have no idea how to build this thing, but I know I want it. And then as I go, I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. And so when we are strategizing and really thinking about what we want, don't filter. Don't
Mm,
filter. If you are thinking, I do want to make this big move, this big bold move, don't filter first. Like focus on what you want, and then you can do the research, and then you can work with someone, or you can figure out what the path or the strategy needs to be to make it happen. I think anytime I find myself going in a spiral of like, oh no, I can't do this, or it's too hard, I'm like, okay, pause. What do we want? And then also, why do we want it? Like, what is the motivation behind that? Being
mm,
clear on those things before you start getting into the weeds of the strategy and the tactics, I think can help you stay grounded in the reason why you're on this path.
mm. I like that. I'm like reflecting on your wisdom here. It was really helpful for me, even. And I know that if you're listening, you're taking your time on that last sip of coffee to like really absorb all this. I really like your analogy of the hats. And what came to my mind when I heard that earlier, right, as an entrepreneur, wear the multiple hats, what came to my mind is what could be like the very first step before you become the marketing person and the this person and the that person? Like the very first step I think you can take this week is, maybe before you put a hat on, you put glasses on. And maybe this week it's just saying,
Mm.
let me put some glasses on. Let me put the financial glasses on. And for 20 minutes, where do I want to be financially in the next 5 to 10 years? Okay, great. I've got that down. Let me put it on paper. Then let's put on the branding glasses on. What are my top skills? What are the pieces that are unique to me? I just had a call with an amazing client. Hey, hey, Vicky. And she was so clear on this. She was like, I have employment law background, I've scaled organizations. And she's like, I'm a culture change. Like I can change corporate culture. Hello,
Mhm.
really high value skill set. So to be clear on those pieces, right? What makes up your branding? Okay, put that on a piece of paper, put on the next set of glasses, right? And just one day at a time, you can let things simmer and then you can start deciding, okay, just like an entrepreneur, the lowest priority, like the thing you can do in your sleep, is typically the thing that goes from being glasses to being the hat, right? So now you're like, okay, now I'm going to start actually working on getting to the next level. So what's the next position that's going to make me the money that I want or whatever? And it goes in layers. So I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically start by putting on the different glasses and asking yourself some questions around that. And then the second thing, I really like how you were like, you said something and I wrote this down. I can't remember exact phrasing, but what I wrote down is inspired by what you said. And that is that you shouldn't ask the question, can I do this? Because that's a yes or no answer. And if you're asking, can I do this? There's already doubt. And that's just going to lead from a
Mm.
question to a statement. I can't do this. So instead, ask the question, how can I do this?
Yes.
If this is what
How?
you want, there is a way to do it. So the question is, how? Later, first answer that one. Later, you can answer, am I willing to do what that takes? But first, find out what it's going to take.
That part. Yes. Yes. Because it's like when you understand what the strategy is, and when we're understanding what it takes, I'm saying not based on assumptions. This is based on, let's go find the evidence. You know how many times people are like,
Thank you
yeah,
for that.
they're like, oh, I can't, I don't want to transition because I'm gonna have to take a pay cut. And I'm like, do you really? Like, have you researched how much they pay and like how someone who transitioned from your type of role has been able to? No, but I'm just assuming that, oh, we're making assumptions. Okay, is that what we're doing?
You're like, not in my law office. No, you don't.
No, that's not what we're doing. We're going to go get some evidence and go get some facts. So make sure that when you are looking at things, that you are like fully looking at it and pay attention to some of those limiting beliefs, some of those, assumptions that we can have around what is possible. But yeah, I love that. I think that's so important.
And that's why, my friend, you need a coach. I have a coach who constantly is like, Patricia, that blind spot I told you about Thursday, it's you have it again. Like,
It's
and I'm
still
like,
there.
oh, I forgot, and it's kind of like this fun game of curiosity and cat and mouse where you're like, why do I do this? Sometimes like and even it says I do the things I don't want to do and I don't do the things I want to do,
Mhm.
right? And so having someone to put some kind of parameters and be like, this is what you said you wanted. And when you're being logical, this is what you say you want. But when things get hard, emotion takes over, right? And that's when the coaching is so helpful to kind of unpack the emotion, neutralize it, and get back onto the logical path, which makes a big
Yes.
difference. Um,
Yes.
as we start to wrap this
Absolutely.
up, I know I can tell in your face, I can see you, and I can tell in your face, you have got some final thoughts. So share with us your final thoughts. Like, what do you want to leave people with today?
Um, I just want to leave people with the fact that life is a journey and we get to go through different seasons. So rather than looking at making a career pivot as a failure or too hard or too stressful, looking at it as an opportunity. Like when I think about the amount of people that I have met since running my business, the people I have coached, the people that have coached me, the programs that I've been in, the amazing people I've been on stages next to, like none of that would have happened if I had just stayed in the law because it was comfortable.
Mm.
Like I've had this whole rich experience outside of just, running the business. I'm just like me personally. And I will say that going through a career change, starting a business, some of the biggest personal development tools of experience that you will grow as a person. So embrace it. If you're at the point of a crossroads and you are considering what's next for you, know that whatever happens, what we know for sure is that you're going to grow as a person in this process.
Yeah.
And growth is good, right? And so let's look at it less as, oh, where am I going to be? And like, what am I going to do? And more like, what journey am I going to go on? And who am I going to become in the process? And I think that takes some of the heaviness off of it.
It's a possibility from outcome to possibility.
100%. It feels so much nicer, right?
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to wrap it up and I was like, oh, wait. I know on my end, my final thought is really kind of along the lines of what you're mentioning. And it just, this question popped up in my head. And it's the question to ask yourself of what's my barrier? Like what's in front of me that's not allowing me to move forward to what I really, really want? And that barrier could be maybe it's a certificate, but more often than not, it's not the certificate, it's something else, right? If the answer to your question, and only you know this, you don't even have to say it out loud, only you know this. If the answer to what is stopping me is me, myself, that's when you know. That's your sign. You've got to call Janine. You've got to call me. You've got to call somebody to get into that position where you can decide logically what you want and then go after it despite the emotion. I think that's what I got, not only out of the story that I heard from you, Janine, out of my own experience and out of our conversation today. It just seems to be like, what is the barrier truly? And how can you make sure it doesn't stop you from doing what you want to do and going where you want to go?
Yes. 100%. I love it. That's such a good question. What is holding you back? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wonderful.
So good.
Gosh, it has been so much fun spending time with you, Jenny. We really need to do this more often.
Totally. I'm like, we can take another conversation offline because I could
Absolutely.
literally talk to you like for hours.
And you know what? We might just hit record and it might just be another episode we have later on down the line. So if you're listening on Janine's podcast, stay tuned, hit that follow button. If you're listening on mine, stay tuned, hit that follow button. We'll both have great conversations with each other and with other people, I'm sure, in the future as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. Know that we're cheering you on. We love you and we'll see you on the next one.
It was so fun to have that conversation and share a bit of my journey and hear about Patricia's and see where there were synergies and overlaps between our journeys, despite the fact that we came from very different industries. And it's also awesome to hear how her faith journey has been infused in her decision making and the way that her career and her business has panned out, and talk about the way mine has been too. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation. If, as you were listening to that, you thought, yeah, I do need some help, I need a coach, I need some support, then click the link in the show notes to have a conversation with me or to explore Patricia's website and the work that she does. I think it's really important for you to find the right fit coach for you. And it is my hope that listening to this episode can give you some inspiration and a bit of a nudge to take action so that you can figure out your best next move. That's all for today. Until next time, look after yourself and keep moving towards your career goals.